All right. There we go. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Karen, Sandy, Catherine, and Chris. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 most powerful forces that can create success in your life, according to the book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. We've been studying this book now for I don't know. When did we start this? In the spring? Or it hasn't been that long, has it? It's only 13 or 14 chapters so far. We're in chapter 14 right now. Is that what we are? Yes, we're on chapter 14. And of course, the chapter topic kind of varies depending on which version of this book that you have. And I think I have the most recent version. And so anyway, this particular version talks about these 4 forces in your life that once you recognize them, they can be allies in your striving journey towards success. So, but before we get going on this topic, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And yeah, okay, so jump out, guys.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement from Boulder, Colorado. Looking forward to today's discussion. Thanks everybody for being here so close to Christmas, and we're a family after all these years, so it's kind of like getting together for Christmas here as opposed to just a mastermind. So thanks for showing up. Love you guys.
Definitely feels like the Christmas hangout. I had to be on today, even though have so much to do. I'm leaving for New York tomorrow. I'm in sunny, warm Miami Beach right now, and I'm going to go freeze. I saw the New Year's forecast for New York is 19 degrees. So I'm not happy about that. Maybe that's why I'm procrastinating. But so good to see you all and be here.
And I'm Karen Lohoff, and not handling the cold here well. It was 33 degrees at 7, and yesterday it was 29 degrees at 8, so I imagine it's a little bit colder right now. Anyway, for me, even though I was born and raised in Wyoming, it's been a long time since I've been a fan of the cold. So I'm excited to get on and just have a good discussion.
Maybe Wyoming is the reason you don't like the cold, Karen. I don't know. I've never been there. My husband said he spent some time out there helping some friends move out there, and it was just like all this like Great Plains, and it was like 90-mile-an-hour cold winds, and I'm like, yeah, I can see why that wouldn't be so much fun. I think Chris is just on, he's just listening in, so I'll say hi for Chris. Hey, Chris, out of Chicago. Good to have you on again. So anyway, guys, so these 4 allies to our success, or forces to our success, let's kind of read we've been reading, okay, I got to get to the right place. Okay, the essential points from chapter 14. So this kind of outlines the 4 powerful allies. So it says, number 1, the power of momentum, and he says steady wins the race. The power of completion, clear out your undones and incompletes. Number 3 is the power of reflection, facing the man or woman in the mirror. And number 4 is the power of celebration, catch yourself doing something right. So these I thought it was really interesting the way he kind of explained some of these. And of course, it's the power of momentum. He referred to the Aesop fable of the tortoise versus the hare. And we all know that it was the tortoise that won, right? But yet our society tends to be more like the hare, where we got to have that instant gratification, and we just want things to happen fast. And yet typically, if we really want any kind of anything to happen in our lives, it takes time to make those things work. And it takes that consistent action on a daily basis to get that momentum to keep us going and create a any kind of result in our life, because he was kind of made a few different correlations. He was talking about exercise, he was talking about eating right, he was talking about accomplishing goals, and one of the things that he was saying is that, of course, if you go and exercise like a couple hours a day, or a couple hours one day per week, you're not going to have the results that you would have if you just spent 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week, it did it, right? Or the same thing with food. If you only eat good one day a week, it's not going to do you any good. It's that daily actions with eating that create the more healthy version of you. So anyway, okay, guys, what do you think about that first one? That power of momentum, slow and steady wins the race, or just steady. He kind of referred to, you can also go too slow, so don't do that, obviously.
Yeah, as you're talking about it, I see how that works in my acupuncture practice. Like, I may get lazy for a week or two and maybe not do my Facebook or Instagram posts or put stuff out there, and I could see the sort of dip in the people that are contacting me. And when I'm really steady with it, it's amazing how people want to connect, and it reminds them that I'm there, and oh yeah, I need to go get an acupuncture treatment. So definitely keeping a steady sort of presence out there. I see the difference a lot in that. So and I was sick all last week, so it was sort of interesting because I really couldn't do anything. I was really in a cocoon, like in the bed for a few days, and yeah, so it was interesting to see the difference. And as soon as I pop back and put a message out or send emails to my list or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, I need to book an appointment, and really keeping them, it gets the momentum going when I'm taking those actions to remind people or put myself out there. So yeah.
Yeah, consistency is like super, super, super important with online marketing, especially. And this is interesting because many of us are kind of we're entrepreneurs, but we've been in multiple opportunities, whether that's because we got into something and it turned out to be something that it wasn't what they claimed, or we just didn't like it, we lost interest, they went under, we didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket, whatever. So many of us have been in multiple opportunities or are currently in multiple opportunities. I know I am. And it's difficult. Like, there's a reason why they tell you to focus on one, guys, because it is difficult to put yourself across many different things. However, I think it can be done. I know it can be done. I've seen people do it successfully because of my challenge in organization. I'm having to find ways to, compensate for that. But it's interesting because I've tried doing it, where like one day a week is dedicated to one thing and one day a week is dedicated to another. And this, what he's talking about here, it would be better to do this hour this day on this, and this hour this day on this, and do something consistently every day on each one of them, or at least 5 days a week, or whatever you decide your business hours are or whatnot, but I absolutely agree with what he's saying here. Like, well, this is kind of a gross comparison, but imagine if you only brushed your teeth once a week. I mean, it's just better to do a little bit every day than to cram it all into one day.
I liked how he at the kind of the beginning of this chapter, he kind of mentions the fact that once you kind of learn about these forces that are in play in your life, you realize how they're already working. They're either working for you or they're working against you, and one thing, just for instance, let's just like talk about our house environment. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't always stay on top of cleaning. It's something that gets put off, and so because I don't do it every day, a few days goes by and I see, oh God, my kitchen is such a mess. Oh, the living room needs picked up. God, I need to sweep the floor. It just gets covered in more and more and more stuff, right? Well, and it doesn't happen instantaneously. It doesn't just all of a sudden pop up and there it is all in 2 hours. It accumulates every single day. There's like this little bit more, a little more splatters in the sink in the bathroom, a little bit more, dirt on the floor, a little more leaves tracked into the house. And then, in a week's time, that's a lot, right? And so it's referring to that exact principle. So we can recognize that it's already happening in our life. And if we do the little things, my mom used to tell me, she's like, because I never understood how she could keep her space clean. Of course, she lives by herself with just her husband now. But, it was a lot more difficult when we were all living there. Obviously, she wanted us all to pitch in, but for her in her space, it was always clean. But she was like, well, when I get done brushing my teeth each morning, I just wipe the sink off. It takes a half a second and it's done. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to come back in here and spend 2 hours scrubbing down the whole bathroom. I just wipe it out after each time I brush my teeth, and I've just never gotten in the habit of that. And it's funny because if I did, obviously my whole bathroom sink would be covered in splatters of toothpaste spittle. but so I think it's fascinating to recognize how it can work against you just as well as it can work for you if you're doing the action that causes it to work for you in the other way around. And and Sandy, when you were referring to your acupuncture practice, of course, I don't know what year this is, 2017. So 10-20 years ago, like the 10 years before 10 years ago, I was in a pet grooming business. So because I retired 10 years ago, so that previous 10 years, I I was doing the same thing. I was staying on top of it. Now it wasn't with Instagram, obviously, because that wasn't a thing so much back then, but it was with sending out postcards to my clients. I was making sure that they got those reminders. Hey, it's time to groom your pet, and this is what Fluffy looked like the last time she looked groomed. Isn't she cute? And, of course, then they look at their pet and they're going, ooh, yeah, I need to get her in there, So it's things like that. It's that regular contact with the people who you are doing business with to get them to come back in. It's the contact with people who have not done business with you yet to remind them that you're there. And I'll give another good example is, oh, there's Chris. Awesome. Another good example is way back a long time ago, I had contacted a carpet cleaning company because they had an advertisement that was like, get a free room when you buy 3 or something like that. So I went, I got that done. And once I had done business with them, they sent me a newsletter every month for years. I had moved from house to house to house, and I had gotten this. And so, and even though I wasn't into like getting my carpet cleaned all the time, because the next house we moved into was mostly hardwood floors, when I did need somebody, that was a person I thought of. And if they had not been sending me that letter on a consistent basis, I probably would have forgotten about them. But because they were staying consistent with that newsletter and sending me tips on how to clean stuff, they were at the forefront of my mind. And I always kept that in mind when I was in business for myself, because I didn't want to be forgotten when it came to those, once every 6 months clients, I want them to be searching for somebody new each time. It was, I wanted to stay at the forefront of their mind. So, and that's how you do it. It's that steady contact with people if you're talking about being in business. But it works in every aspect of our lives. So, Chris, do we hear you? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I think you can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I was around, and I thought I'd stop in and just listen in and be a part of your class here today. Had some extra time.
Awesome.
Thanks for letting me be here.
I've dominated the conversation for a couple minutes.
I'm not up to date on the material, although rarely was I. But so I'll just listen in and I'll give a word if I have one. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. All right. Who else wants to jump
That, what you said about the cleaning was cracking me up because it's like the one area of my life where I can't ever get it together. Like, I'll wait till it's a disaster zone to start cleaning, and I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a horoscope zodiac sign thing. I don't know. Because every year I'm like, my New Year's resolution is I'm going to be more organized and more clean, but it never happens. I'm just like, wait till it's a disaster zone to start cleaning. And I want my own cleaner. I can't. I don't like doing it. So that made me laugh.
So what sign are you, Sandy?
Sagittarius. We
Okay.
like to have fun. We don't like to do those mundane things. We like to travel the world and be esoteric and
Yay.
learn and do that thing. So I'm always doing.
Just leave it all behind.
Somebody else clean this up. Maybe a Virgo. Virgos are good at cleaning, yeah. I don't know.
Hotels are probably a good option.
All right. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this this first one, momentum and steady wins the race?
I think that the exercise, that it's especially important with that too. I used to be a gymaholic. I would go work out for a couple hours in the gym, and I did it multiple times a week. So I was fairly consistent, but I still think it's better, everything in moderation and consistency, I guess. And it's so funny because I'm a sticker junkie. God, I can't even talk. Sticker junkie on Facebook, and they just came out with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stickers, and so I've been using Turtle Power in my messages for the past couple of days because I feel like that turtle that's just kind of plodding along. I mean, making great gains. Now I almost feel like I'm a turtle on a skateboard or like a rocket or something. I don't know, but it still comes down to those daily consistent actions, and it's the little ones that we don't think that we don't think they're important, but they are. And it's so funny because I think about how much most of us are working these days, and if you look at like the amount of work that we get accomplished, probably in an hour with the internet is probably more than some of our ancestors did in years. Like, seriously, you guys, like I was looking at my data, and I think I go through like 250 gigs a month or something. And that I'm not gaming or anything. I mean, that's just like work and stuff. So, and expanding my knowledge, and we're in such an age right now that I think if we don't have consistency, we can just kind of get lost down the drain hole somewhere. You can lose track of something and not remember it for weeks, or at least I can, Like I'll come back to it. Holy shit. I was supposed to do that like 2 weeks ago or a month ago or something, because there's just so many plates spinning.
Yeah, for sure. And he mentions in the chapter, he talks about that moving too fast and how, where was it? He made that comment of things that grow too fast. You've seen all kinds of examples of things that grow too fast for their own good. The business that expanded too rapidly and then self-destructed. Rock stars, movie stars, athletes, or politicians who became a shooting star and came crashing down and burning. The housing bubble of the mid-2000s. He talks about going too fast, growing too fast often puts the system or the person's survival at risk. Faster can easily turn out to be slower. So, and he reminds us to find our own intrinsic, intrinsically optimal rate of growth. And it's always served best by a step-by-step approach of constant, never-ending improvement, which lays solid foundations and builds upon them over and over. And then he also talks about, in this particular section, he talks about, it can take a lot of energy to get going in the first place versus, he says it takes far less to keep yourself going once you've started, but that getting going is the hardest thing, and I can completely relate to that because, that few years that we were living in our camper, and I wasn't working a job then. I was just doing internet stuff. I was spending a lot of time hanging out in nature and just enjoying my own presence and being present. And it was wonderful. But, when we came back up north and I had to get back into the job, industry or whatever, I had to get a job, and it was hard for me to get motivated to go out and get a job, do an interview, do that whole process of all of that. It was just really hard for me to get going with that. And then once I got in there, it was a lot of work to get back up mental energy enough to be going every day. I mean, it's hard, but now of course I've gotten a little bit more energy and now I'm going in there daily. Then it's not as bad as what it was when I first started. So I can completely relate to that. It takes effort to get going, but then once you are going, it's easier to keep on going. So, anyway, that was my last thought on that part of it. Anybody else have thoughts on that? Should we move on to the next force?
It reminded me of the product line I launched like a month or so ago, and I lost the momentum because in the beginning it's like there's a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I didn't realize this was going to be so much work. And then when I got sick, like it just sort of fell off, and I haven't got back in the groove, but I noticed when I was really building that momentum in the beginning, like people were responding and things were happening, and now it's just like sort of sitting over there. And because I haven't got back in the momentum of it, but yes, it's so true. Like, if you're really doing something every day, it goes and it goes and it goes, and if you drop it and you're not, nothing's happening. So, yeah. I wanted to add that.
So the next one he talks about is the power of completion, and he talks about clearing out your undone things and your incomplete things. And he says another way to gather momentum and harness it to your advantage is by regularly practicing an activity called completion. And he's talking about unfinished things in your life, unfinished products or unfinished projects, unfinished business with relatives, He says, every incomplete thing in your life works and exerts a draining force on you, sucking the energy of accomplishment and success out of you as surely as a vampire stealing your blood. Every incomplete promise, commitment, agreement saps your strength because it blocks your momentum and chokes off your ability to move forward, progress, or improve. Incomplete things keep calling you back to the past to take care of them. And I think he was referring to earlier on in one of the chapters, he was talking about when you're focused on the past, then you're not moving forward. And so if you have these incomplete things in your life that you say you want to do, but you never get around to doing them, then that's actually the past kind of holding you back from getting things done. And he makes he tells about a story about this woman who had said that, you know, she was getting ready to move, and over her time of living in this one particular house, she had accumulated a lot of stuff in the basement, just piles and piles and piles of stuff, and all she had was this one little path from the stairs over to the washing machine to get to. And she was looking at all this stuff, seeing it as this overwhelming thing that she just had no idea how she was possibly going to do it or get it taken care of so that she could move. And so then she made this decision that she was just going to do one box or one basket or one little thing each time that she went down into the basement. And once she started doing those little things and taking care of those little things, it just chipped away little by little by little, and eventually it was done. And so she was able to kind of get this whole basement cleared out just because of these little tiny things that she did every time that she went down there. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm faced with things, not always necessarily things that have accumulated I haven't done, but maybe projects I'm looking at doing where I decided I was going to get A+ certified for the computer tech, A+ certified, and get those. And that's a lot of study to do if you want to do that. And it's like a book, like this thick, to study for one certification. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at this and I'm like, geez, how am I ever going to complete it? It's like this huge, overwhelming task. But I decided I'm just going to get up each morning and I'm going to spend 30 minutes studying. And that's all, just 30 minutes. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to get it all done in a week. I'm not going to give myself that ridiculous, try and get it done in 5 minutes kind of attitude. I'm just going to do 30 minutes a day until it's done. And what's interesting about that is that just those little tiny little actions actually gets more done than trying to do like a bunch of studying all in one day. And so anyway, with this, it's the same kind of concept as this woman who had this whole full basement, is just to realize that what is that saying? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And the completed journey of 1,000 miles means you got to take a step every day, or you got to do a little bit every day. And if you look at big projects like that, it just takes a little tiny effort every single day, then it's not nearly so overwhelming. Think about some of these. We were watching a show last night that was like one of those huge engineering things where they create these massive structures of, big buildings or bridges or these things that seem like they're impossible tasks. And I think about that and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine trying to accomplish something so huge. But obviously the only way to do that is that you had to start somewhere. You start at this little first little task of, collecting the right people to put your minds together, and figure out a way to make it happen, right? And then each time you do a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually you've got people working on it, and then they're laying one brick at a time or floating one thing out into the river at a time or whatever it is. And then over time, all of a sudden you have this massive, huge thing. They were talking about the intercontinental highway that goes from one side of Canada to the other, and all the things that they had to overcome weather-wise and because of snow and all these things. It was like an insurmountable project when it was first thought of, and I think it took like 10 years to get it done. But can you think about that? It's just like something that takes 10 years to complete, and the amount of I don't know, commitment and energy and everything that goes into that on a daily basis in order to make something like that happen. It's amazing to me that the things that can be accomplished with those little tiny efforts. And, you know, even even the Bible talks about that, talks about the, you know, the faith of the mustard seed is what it takes to move mountains. Well, that's what it's referring to. Is it's that little tiny effort that you can do every single day to literally move a mountain, because we've seen it happen. You know, we've seen people tunnel through mountains to make tunnels. We've seen them, you know, literally create inverted mountains in the ground, digging stuff up like gravel and sand and everything like that. And like, you know, my husband pulls gravel out of a gravel pit every day, and it is literally like an inverted mountain in the ground of a big hole that they've dug from all the years they keep digging. But okay, I've talked enough. Somebody else.
You're fine. You just stop there.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I had a perfect example of this past week. I have this paperwork for a governmental agency that is like overdue. It was overdue like 30 days, and it was like I was so stressed out over that, and I didn't have the I needed information that I had contacted other people for, and they weren't getting me the information, and so I didn't feel like I could fill out the paper, and I was just my brain like melts anytime I'm dealing with anything like that anyway. And so it was, but this was just with it being overdue, it was just so stressful, and like it was all in my mind, guys. Like I was making all this shit up in all this stress in my mind, because finally, like one day I'm like, okay, I'm just going to send it in, and I'm just going to tell them, look, I don't have the information. I've tried to get the information. I can't get the information. I'm just sending this in to you so that you know, like, I'm doing my part. I'm not trying to avoid filling it out or something. You know, I just don't have the information. And then I sent it in. And all of a sudden, like, all that stress just completely was gone. And I'm like, oh my God, I did it to myself again, right? So don't do that. Like, and I'm talking to myself here. Like, I'm not trying to preach at people. I'm just yelling at myself here. Don't do that to yourself, because it's so, you know, and it goes right back to Byron Katie. Like, don't let your brain, your mind, whatever it is, like, lie to yourself about all this stuff and make things more difficult than what they are. And that's really, I think, one of the power or the power behind this a little bit every day is that it keeps you in forward motion as opposed to backwards, because we can't be stagnant, right? We're either moving forwards or backwards. So the daily action keeps you moving forward, even if, you know, like in the future, even if I have a paper like that and I need to fill out one question a day, maybe that's what I need to do, you know. But I loved what he talked about with that woman, because you know, she did the same. I did the same thing that she did. Like, I made it this big thing in my head. And when it got down to it, it really wasn't a big thing at all. I just had to change the way I was thinking about it, and take a slightly different approach. I mean, once all that stress was gone, and I was like, well, shit, I could have done that like weeks ago. Yeah. Without torturing myself all that time. So, yeah, you know, this is powerful stuff, you guys, if we can just remember it before we torture ourselves for weeks.
Good mention, because it's the same for me with like accounting and tax stuff. It's like there's just like a big wall. Even though someone's doing it for me, I still, like, when they email me, I'm like, no, I don't want to look. Maybe that's a zodiac thing too.
It's a blue thing, I think, Sandy. It's a blue thing for sure.
Ah, yes. Like, it's a nightmare even thinking about it. And or if I get a bill in the email, like, your bill is due. And I'm like, ah! I mean, I could pay it in 5 seconds, but it's just like this thing, like, I'll get to this later. But yeah, blue, definitely. Blue thing.
Yeah, Catherine, I like how you mentioned the aspect of how we stress ourselves out over we're the ones that make it seem overwhelming, when in reality it's really not that overwhelming. We just, because I'm the same way when it comes to taxes and of course I have to pay payroll taxes every month for our business, and then I have to do the quarterly reporting, and then we do the annual reporting. There's all these things that you have to do, and you pay the bills and blah blah blah, and balance the bank accounts, and it just is. It's so, I don't want to say it's overwhelming, because it's really not. I just do it, and it's really not that big a deal when I'm doing it, but it's that whole thought process leading up to doing it. Like, oh God, April 15th is so close. I've got all this crap I have to do, and when I just sit down and do it, it takes like, I don't know, three hours, maybe. I don't know, something stupid like that. But, when I have a stretch of 3 hours, I just don't want to do it. So I think I make it out to be much worse than what it is, just so that I don't know, maybe that's what we do to ourselves. We just are like, oh, it's so horrible. I can't do that. I'd rather be sitting in the sun and enjoying the sunshine. I mean, I know that's what I'd rather be doing, right? But then, of course, once it's done, there's this big relief and feels great, And I think that's what he's talking about here, is like, get that undone stuff done, because it lifts that weight off of you and creates an opening for you to move forward. So I think that's awesome the way he talks about that. Karen, we haven't heard from you in a bit. You want to pipe in?
Well, I was thinking about my jalapeno lips. And that doesn't really have anything to do, I don't think, with, well, it may have something to do with taking care of things a little bit at a time. My son came in just a few hours ago with some more puppies, so I've been a little distracted and back and forth, but he left time before last with some Johnsonville sausages that had jalapeno in them. And he's left stuff that's gone rotty totty, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to let that happen with this. This sounds good. So after I'd had a couple, a couple days had gone by, and I'd had one each day. I noticed that my lips were outlined intermittently with little red something or other, and I thought, well, isn't that interesting? I wonder what that has to do with anything. And then about the third day after I'd had another one, I thought, I think my lips don't like jalapeno. Now, the rest of my body didn't seem to have a problem. And now I don't know what it is, because I'm still having a problem with my lips being really, really, really dry. And, they just felt abused, and I think they're just going to keep on showing, with the little things and our minds and what our minds do. I thought it was really interesting when Catherine said that her mind goes melty, because I hadn't thought about that, but I certainly have. I certainly can relate to what that is. My brain definitely goes fuzzy. It goes like the old black and white TV sets that, and I can look at something, or I can think about something, or I can hear a remark like on a meeting like this in reference to something that I don't like. And Sandy, I think it may just well be a Sagittarius thing where you can't deal with taxes and all that kind of stuff. But and if you would, Catherine, mention the name of that book, The Color Book, because it's been a while since I've gone over that, but um, you know, I think our brains get like you were talking about the bathroom sink and you know the bathroom mirror, how it gets all splattered with toothpaste spittle and stuff like that. And there are things that you need to address, and sometimes you don't recognize that you really need to address them until you go through a book like this, and we talk about you know, we talk about it in terms of momentum, or we talk about it in terms of, um, I remember I used to, I learned from Recovery Incorporated, which has to do with the nervous patient, and I was using the material for my bipolar, and it's where you take things in part acts. You know, you go in. When I was selling Tupperware 800 years ago, there was this really elegant looking woman who had white hair, and I think she probably was in her 50s, and she just looked like someone who, you know, who probably rode one of those things around in India where everybody carried her. You know, I mean, she was just so pristine and so beautiful and everything. And one day she stood up and she said, you know, to keep your bathroom clean, you know, every time that you get up in the morning and the first thing that you do is you go to the bathroom, then you put in your toilet bowl cleaner and you just swish a few times. And I thought, wow, you would have thought I could have thought of that. And I never did. So those are my remarks for the moment.
We're running out of time. Okay, we got 2 more to talk about. Let's talk about the power of reflection. This one's a powerful one too, because he talks about the fact that, you know, we all are busy, right? You know, but sometimes busy is just busy. It's not actually accomplishing anything. You're like just doing stuff to fill up time or whatever. And so he reminds us, he says, being productive and being busy are not necessarily the same thing. Doing things won't create your success. Doing the right things will. And so then he goes on to say, everyone's busy, everyone does the actions, but were they the right actions? He's saying, let's ask ourselves some questions each day, you know, about, you know, are the actions that you were doing, are they the right actions? Did you take a step forward? Were those actions productive? He says most people never take the time to think about whether what they're doing is getting them where they want to go. They just kind of do stuff and hope for the best, right? And so there's this big list of questions in here on page 211 that you can kind of go through there and ask yourself these questions and reflect on, you know, what first of all, obviously you have to know what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to be more healthy? Are you trying to have a more successful business? Are you trying to get you know, happier in your relationships? You know, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get further along in your career, etc.? And then you ask yourself these questions. You know, like if you're trying to be more healthy, did you eat well or did you eat poorly? You know, and it's not a matter of trying to make yourself feel guilty. It's just start recognizing those actions that you're doing so that you can decide each time that you do something that, you know, is it working you towards your goal or is it working you away from your goal? And one thing he suggested in here, this powerful exercise, he says, you know, most of us will write some kind of a to-do list of, you know, things we should do each day or whatever. He says, instead of doing that, write a I did list. What did you do today to work towards your goals? At the end of the day, you know, a lot of people journal or think about their day or whatever, and he's like, you know, make it more productive by answering these questions and looking at, okay, write down what you did, and then at the end of the week you can look back and see everything that you've accomplished. So that's what do you guys think about that one?
Sort of. I keep up with I try to like keep up with my list, but at the same time, what was he saying about it, about doing with the list?
He suggested instead of writing a to-do list, or I mean, maybe not even instead of, but maybe in addition to, depending. But he says, you know, everybody writes to-do lists. What if we started writing an I did list, like things that I've accomplished list today?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. In addition, also makes sense to me because, like if, I mean, unless you're thinking of it spontaneously, there's some bigger goals and other things you don't always think of. So you sort of do need like some kind of goal list, although I'm not really great at it myself. So I don't know what to say.
Well, I really go along with that because there's a lot more reward in writing down what you've done. And interestingly enough, I started a Word page this morning, put a table on it, and started writing what I'd already done, you know, from 4:30 on. And it encourages me. I mean, I'm sitting here, you know, wanting to get right back and put something else on there. You know, I attended, you know, and participated in my SAM meeting, my Saturday AM mastermind meeting, which is also thanks to Sam. And I also remember my youngest son and his wife, who are, you know, the two of them together are a kind of a personality type that's a little bit, in some ways, kind of rigid, kind of, you know, kind of chop, get things done, you know, go through life, mark off the little signposts and so forth. And one time when they visited, he said, you know, we have just found it just simply doesn't work for us to do a budget. But you know what does work for us? We write down everything we spend and what we spend it on. And I thought, hey, you know what? I can see that. I can live with that. And I think some of us, you know, we all do have different brains, and there are certain things that work for us a little bit better than others. So I'm all for that.
Thought I lost you right there for a second. I clicked away for a second and went quiet, and then nobody else was jumping out there. You know, that's interesting, Karen, about the budget aspect. Is you know, I not too long ago I listened to the Millionaire Mind Intensive, and he talks about that a lot, the budgeting aspect, and how a lot of people, it doesn't work for them to sit there and say, oh, you can only spend this, or you can only, you know, set out ahead of time what your spending can be. And he suggested instead is to create a group of accounts, and each time you get a paycheck, is you automatically put a percent of that paycheck into each one of these accounts designated for, you know, your necessities, your what else was it? It was like your necessities, fun money. I like that one. Your retirement account, your, you know, you can like make up accounts for different things, you know, say your savings for that big boat you want, you know, or whatever. And you can just like automatically you know, put these amounts of money in there each time that you get a paycheck. And then what's been really interesting to me by just doing that is it automatically kind of changed the way that I spend my money. And I didn't even have to do anything. I'm still kind of have the same similar habits as far as my spending goes, but I end up spending less because there's less in my fun money account to spend. Because I'm like, okay, well, you know, once that money runs out, I can't go out to eat anymore, but I can definitely go out to eat if I want to, if there's money there, you know, and I can definitely go shopping if I want to, if there's money in my shopping account, you know, and each thing, it's just like, if the money's there, I spend it, you know, and so it's interesting how making just some simple little change to your way of handling money can make such a big difference, because now I've got, a pretty significant amount in my my retirement fund, which I had not ever done before. And all I did was just change this one little thing. I didn't have to like make a big deal about, you can only spend $30 a month on out to eat or whatever. I just, it's silly how something so small can make such a big difference. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Any other thoughts on the reflection one before? We're almost at the top of the hour. I know we need to wrap this up, but I wanted to talk about this last one, so our whole video will actually cover all 4 of these.
You still got one more?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
throw
we
it
still
in
have
there.
one more.
Go ahead. Throw it in there.
Okay, so the last one is use the power of celebration. And of course, this one is a big one that I think a lot of us forget to do. And he says another critical reason the power of reflection is so important is it's not just to be nag and remind yourself when you're slacking off. It's to point out all the positive steps that you're taking. And that's a big deal, because when you can celebrate these accomplishments that you've made, even if they're tiny, it's just when we were talking about the woman who had the basement full of stuff and that big weight that she felt was lifted off of her for accomplishing getting all that stuff done. I mean, it's the same thing when you're like, oh, okay, I've done this each day for a week and I just feel better, because I exercised for 3 minutes a day or whatever, or I ate better each day, or I did this one little task. I cleaned my sink each morning. Isn't it wonderful? I have a clean sink, I mean, it's so you're just celebrating those little things makes you it makes you feel good and helps you continue with that momentum. What do you guys think about celebrating your accomplishments?
I think this is huge, because I think, well, I don't know how many, but I would say a lot of us probably beat ourselves up more than we congratulate ourselves. I know, it's like you can get 25 compliments in a day, and then if somebody criticizes you or something, it's like that's what you remember for the day sometimes. Not all the times, but I think this is a really huge point. And I know we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to throw in my helpful hint, which I think I've probably mentioned before, but I'm going to mention it again. And the reason I bring it up is because I believe it will help with all of these steps, actually. And that is, there's a free program called Trello. And you can go over there, Trello.com, and you can get a free account. And you can make these boards for different projects and different, maybe you want to do the exercise every day. You can keep track of it there. You can keep track of if you're in multiple businesses or you're just working multiple projects. Many of us help multiple charities and we have things going on for them. So this is a place where you can create a board for each thing. You can make it as fun as you want for the blue personalities. You can make it as detailed as you want for the green personalities. But you can keep track of these things and track your progress so that you know what you're celebrating. I think it can really help on all these steps. So Merry Christmas to everyone. I love you all so much. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Catherine, and I'll go ahead and follow that up to start this off with that I love all you guys too, and really wish you a super Merry Christmas and good holidays. I think celebrating is really important. I don't believe that I was raised, or sometimes I think I just missed everything or misinterpreted everything, but I don't think I was really raised to celebrate a lot. And I think that doing things for myself, even just to take a moment and say, hey, that's an accomplishment. That's a good thing. It contributes to my feeling so much better about myself. And I've mentioned before that someone told me, gosh, probably 5-6 years ago now, that I had no self-esteem, amongst a couple of other really negative things, that has really, really helped me, because I don't know if you're aware of it, but self-esteem has a really bad rap. You know, you get online about reading about self-esteem, and it's kind of like, you know, leave that stuff alone, forget all that stuff, hang it all up. You know, nobody needs self-esteem and so forth. But I consider it all part of the selves. We need self-worth. We need self-love. We need self-care. We need self-respect. We need self-confidence. And so this last thing is helping in that area. And I for one, can't possibly get too much of that to kind of help keep alive, you know, the good things and the good goals and desires that I have in my life. So thanks.
Anybody else have final thoughts on that one? Andy?
I'll hop out. I have to hop off, though. I have another call. Yeah, no, as I'm thinking about it, like Catherine said, we're so easy more to like beat ourselves up or criticize ourselves. So yeah, it's important to take that time to really look at our accomplishments, even if it's a teeny little thing, and celebrate, definitely. So celebrate, and it's the holiday season. Let's celebrate.
I'll just read the last paragraph of this section. Okay, it says, keep your slight edge activities. Oh, wait. He says, it's the slight edge power of reflection and acknowledgement, celebration. Keep your slight edge activities, your right choices and incremental successes, right out in the open where you can see them and celebrate them. Remember that all the activity required to apply the slight edge process, or the slight edge for your success, is a series of baby steps. Trust the process. Acknowledge those steps, no matter how small or insignificant they may seem at the time. Make each successful right choice a celebration. You'll be able to feel literally like those balance scales shifting in your favor. Nothing breeds success like more success. It's so simple that it's easy, tragically easy not to do. The good news is doing it is just as easy. So, guys, with that, it's easy because you can break it up into those tiny little baby steps. And I don't know if are you hearing that noise in the background? Okay, good. Anyway, it's easy to break it up into little baby steps, and those baby steps are easy to do, and that's the key, because when we look at it and it seems so overwhelming, then obviously that kind of makes us feel like we can't possibly accomplish it. But it's the tiny little things that we do every day that helps us achieve those big, huge projects, or even just little projects sometimes. So, all right, guys. Well, it's been a great chat today. I love you all. Have an awesome, amazing, and wonderful holiday weekend, or Christmas, if that's what you're celebrating. And we'll see you next week.
Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah, exactly. Happy everything. And we'll see you next week before New Year's, next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And what is it, 7 a.m. Mountain Time? Is it 7 a.m. out there, Catherine?
8.
Karen? 8. Okay. 8 a.m. Pacific, or Mountain Time, 7 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Okay. Close enough. You guys can figure it out.
It's Mountain Time, but I don't know what time it is.
Okay. All right, guys.
It's
Love you
9.
all. Have
It's
a great
9 o'clock
weekend.
now.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.